this is a great place to start. This is exactly what a season opener for a team like Oregon against a team like Montana State is supposed to look like. Okay, now this is the last time maybe that I'll mention last year's season opener. And there's been a lot of teams across college football that haven't exactly looked the best in week one. But Oregon came out and they did exactly what they were supposed to do against a team like Montana State. And there's a lot of confidence, I think, brimming from myself and I think from other Duck fans out there. But this is a really good starting point, a really good maybe jumping off point, launching point, might you say, for the rest of the season. Because I think this game, among many other things, a big part of it was being able to build that confidence right out of the gate. And when you talk, and I think the biggest point that I want to really hammer home in this being a great place to start and the positivity is on offense. The offensive balance was as good as you can get. Okay, this was as balanced of a performance as you could possibly ask for. Okay, how about 253 yards on the ground? Okay, how about 253 yards through the air? Folks, it doesn't get more balanced than that. And, I'm kind of watching this game early on and I'm seeing what they're doing. Look, they're not, and you watch them offensively, they're not, getting ultra complicated. Okay, you kind of start off from the beginning of the game and they're looking to create an advantage with their offensive line. They're looking to push people around. They're looking to run the football, right, early in this matchup. And then when you take a look at the passing game, I think maybe during that 2-minute drill, they stretched the field a little bit, but overall, this was not an offense, and I think we've come to expect this from Will Stein in this hashtag Feed the Studs offense that he has here in Eugene. But this was an offense or a passing game that was not ultra complicated down the field. They did not stretch the field a lot, and that's kind of what I expected. They just had so much that I didn't expect them to put a lot on tape against a team like Montana State. And the facts was, if this team came out, okay, and they were efficient and they executed high, that this is the type of performance that they were going to get. And that's exactly what happened here today. So balance was as good as it could have gotten, certainly here today. So that was great to see on the offensive side of the ball. The guy that was running the show on offense, Mr. Moore, Dante Moore. Let's talk about him, because for old number 5, if you didn't know any better, and this was maybe you didn't know anything about Oregon, and maybe you're just maybe you're a basketball fan for some reason. It's like, okay, let's watch some college football today. Let's turn on the Big Ten Network, okay? You probably would have thought, oh, that number 5, that Dante Moore, he's a multi-year starter, right? He's a confident field general. No, he started a handful of games a couple of years ago at UCLA, and now he's a starting quarterback here. But here's what I'll say about this. I think that's what that last year sitting, learning the maturity it took to be able to do that. I think you maybe saw bits and pieces of that, and, well, you just saw the talent that Dante Moore certainly has out there. But, it was not only what he was able to do delivering the football, it was some of these checks at the line of scrimmage, some pass protection stuff, where he just looked like a calm, cool, and confident customer back there in the pocket. 18 of 23, 3 touchdowns in this game. Confident decision-making. Got in a rhythm early, and they built his confidence throughout this game. I think, there was a lot of things that Oregon wanted to accomplish in this game. I think a big thing that they want to accomplish, they did, is getting a lot of confidence and having a lot of success with Dante in his first start in an Oregon uniform. I thought he played great. And, the guys he's throwing the ball to, I think this. I'm going to beat home this drum multiple times and multiple times and multiple times, okay? But here's, I think, the fact of the matter. The wide receiver room in this game seems like the top 3 are maybe starting to separate themselves. I'm not going to go and say, well, it's one game against Montana State. This is the clear 3, okay? It's Montana State. All right, let's maybe talk about that once we get to game 3 or game 4. But I feel really confident that DeCorian Moore, who you could see glimpses of the type of twitchy athlete that he really has, but he didn't have a big opportunity to break out. He was in kind of a hurdle off with Kenyon Sadiq on one of those drives, which was really fun to see out there. And then you look at two guys, both scored touchdowns in this game, Malik Benson and Gary Bryant Jr. Gary Bryant Jr., I think, is certainly going to be the leader coming out of the slot for Oregon this season. And then Malik Benson. We'll maybe highlight him here in just a minute, but I thought he had a really good game. He showed an ability to be able to use his speed and his quickness to be able to get open. I think he could be a really good weapon down the field. The more experienced, once you get to game 2, game 3, game 4, and then, of course, we know that big game 5 against Penn State. But then you kind of look to this next tier of wide receivers. Hey, big props to Jeremiah McClellan getting it done on special teams, right? So, and then he was able to get a catch in this game. Kyler Casper is another guy I want to talk about. So he was kind of rumored throughout fall camp. Okay, yeah, he's looking to come off of an injury, maybe compete for a starting spot. But when I compare Kyler's performance to maybe the performance of some of these other guys, I just see him at a second-tier spot right now. I think they're going to take advantage of his size throughout the season, but I certainly think those three appear to be in a position to be able to break away and separate themselves as the top wide receivers on this team. And personally, once again, going to say it again, going to probably say it 1,000 times, okay, but against Montana State in this game, I feel pretty good the way those guys performed at wide receiver in this specific matchup. Let's go to the defensive side of the football. Look, Montana State, physical team up front. They wanted to be able to run the football throughout this game. And, the Bobcats found out, and they found out pretty early, our identity, it's not going to work out in this game. It ain't going to work out because this defensive line was fantastic for Oregon today. It was a dominant performance. Montana State found out really early that the run game just was not going to be an option. It was not going to be an option. So they had to turn to other things. I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. Amari Washington, once again, I'll say it because I'm sure it's going to be brought up at some point. Yes, it's Montana State. Yes, Amari Washington's got 20 to 30 pounds on a lot of these Montana State FCS offensive linemen. I get that, but he is an absolute animal. His speed and quickness, I think maybe is as big of a part in his performance today and how great he is as a defensive tackle as much as his size and his power are. But he was in the backfield every play. I mean, maybe if it wasn't every play, it was a 90%, 95% of plays. And he was able to clog the run lanes, which I expected him to do. And even in some pass rush situations, that's where you see his quickness. That's where you see his speed. That's where I think he's really going to be a threat. The interior pass rush, I think, is going to be really good for Oregon throughout this game. Now, you might raise your hand and be like, oh, Ted, wait a minute. Didn't you tell me throughout these last 9 months, didn't you tell me in fall camp, spring ball, all that stuff, didn't you tell me that this edge room was one of the best parts of the team? Didn't you tell me that this pass rush was great? And wait, they didn't get home as much as Ted promised they would. But I will say this, Montana State adjusted when they knew the run game wasn't going to work. They adjusted to the pass game. Very quick pass game. I think a lot of the quick releases, maybe neutralize some of the pass rush. Shout out, I'd say, to Tatum Tuioti. Because I thought he was beating his guy consistently on that side of the football, but he just, like I said, he didn't get a lot of opportunities because they didn't have a lot of medium to deep passing concepts where it takes time to be able to develop. They wanted to get rid of the football quickly, and that was something that they were able to do. But that defensive line, it was like, hey, I said it in the preview, stop the Bobcats run game, and you stop the Bobcats. Look what happened. Look what happened. Last thing I want to touch on here with my takeaways is the secondary. Hey, there's a lot of good things to be able to take away out of a performance like this, but once Montana State did adjust and they got it to Taco Dowler time after time after time after time, and that was their passing offense. And when he continues to get the ball, some of this drag concepts across the middle, outbreaking routes, slants, whatever, some of these shorter passing concepts, it's just, Oregon secondary just didn't have an answer for him in certain parts of the game. Now, it's okay. They kept everything in front of them. They didn't allow maybe a lot of huge run after catches to be able to happen throughout this contest. But that's something that I believe that this Oregon secondary needs to be able to work on. They didn't get tested a lot down the field, so it's really hard to say how they're going to fare against maybe some teams that are going to be, I don't want to maybe say a little bit more pass heavy, but how are they going to fare against teams that are a little bit more balanced and maybe push the ball down the field a little bit more. This was not really a test. We didn't really find out a lot about how that is going to be. But in terms of the short, quick passing game, we have some examples that maybe that's something that Oregon really needs to focus on, that they really need to be able to dial in on over these next couple of weeks. Look, I think this was as good of a performance that Oregon, I think, could probably have in week number 1. I think there's a lot of confidence coming out of this performance. Big win for the Ducks, 59-13 over Montana State. A lot to be able to build on from this performance.